I have a very general practice here in Sydney, New York, which is a very small town. Um, I've been filmless and paperless now since the late '90s in my practice, and the reason I've been able to do that is because of what we're able to do with having a dual digital approach of having both the hard direct sensors, using things like SHIC-33 and the ScanX Swift, and variety of topics like that. I mean, again, the whole goal is that despite the fact that I'm in a very rural area, I'm actually able to do state of the art modern dentistry because of having the appropriate technology to service my patient needs. Well, what I mean by a dual digital approach, we use both, direct wired hard sensors in our office, and we use the flexible ScanX phosphorus plate systems. And I've been using that since the ScanX was first introduced back years ago, back before I had a film-based, or back when I had a film-based pan. It was the easiest way for me at that time to convert from film into a completely digital world. I mean, I love my hard sensors, but I cannot place a hard sensor every place I absolutely need one. And if I ever do have a problem, having the flexible phosphorus plate systems that I have with the ScanX system enables me to have a redundancy built in. So I never have to worry about not being able to acquire an image when it's needed. And I've been very pleased with the dual approach, so that no matter what patient shows up in my office, I've got the appropriate radiographic technology to manage it. And unfortunately, not everybody can tolerate the same situation. The radiographic imaging is the foundation of diagnosis. Imaging as a whole is the foundation of what we're doing in the diagnostic process in dentistry. And being able to, no matter what the scenario and the situation is that the patient presents with, is being able to acquire the correct image in an appropriate manner. As I mentioned, I know I really do like my direct wired sensor systems. However, I would not want to put those in an uncooperative patient's mouth or in a person who has anatomical, variances, things like, mandibular tori or even a palatine torus, people that are gaggers. So any place I can place a film, I can place, a flexible phosphorus plate sensor with my ScanX system. And so it gives me all the flexibility of film with all of the enhancements and values that digital imaging brings to us. Being able to enhance an image. If it's underexposed slightly, be able to correct that with the software to get the best diagnostic image out of it. And that's the thing that having direct digital imaging, brings to it. And the phosphorus plate systems also bring the same value. So being able to maintain my patient's images all in a single file, being able to know that they're safe and they're protected, so that no matter what would happen, and so I can access them anywhere around the world. As a person who does a lot of education and dentistry and lectures literally all around the world, being able to manage a patient from no matter where I am, digital radiography really gives me that benefit. More than once while I have been in a foreign country, I've been able to communicate directly with my patients, looking at their records, looking at their past history, as well as presenting at that moment in time to enable me to manage them appropriately. And and if they need to be seen directly by somebody, making sure they get into their hands. If it's something that I can manage remotely, to manage it remotely. I mean, and this is where the filmless and paperless office really come into great value as we move, through the new millennium that we're living in today. Incorporating the appropriate technology is a cost saving rather than a cost expense to the practice. It allows me to do better dentistry in a much more efficient manner. With the indirect systems, and we do have to still go through a scanning process similar to our chemical developers, but it's a matter of seconds versus minutes. And once it's been acquired and it's been appropriately processed, we're then able to literally use the image and to be able to transport it to whether it's a third-party payer, whether it is a specialist, or whether it's even using it for patient education and communication, in a much simpler manner than holding up a very small number 2 size film and expecting the patient to be able to see anything in it. And and so this is the advantage of digital radiography brings it a whole, and being able to capture all that becomes very valuable to us. Well, yeah, one of the things that is, the biggest fear to the patients is always the pain and discomfort of going into a dental practice to having any sort of work done. And the first step of anything is diagnosis. And being able to place a flexible sensor in the mouth in the patients that are uncomfortable or have a little bit nervous is a good way to transition them into the high tech process. As I mentioned, any place that I can place an acetate film, I have the ability with the ScanX system to be able to place a flexible phosphorus plate with a variety of different sizes. And so the whole goal is to always being able to treat the patient's needs and the desires as they present. One of the things we oftentimes hear about in continuing ed courses are things like patient selection. Okay, making sure you select. But when the patient presents, they don't have a, they don't can't select their case. They are what they are. And we as a clinician, especially in areas like mine, where I am very rural, I have to make sure I have the ability and the technology to meet those needs, which is extremely important to me and more important to my patients. Well, again, one of the things that people look at digital radiography is you have to be a computer geek or you have to have a very, very high-tech office. With incorporating digital imaging into your system, with an indirect system such as the ScanX, the workflow becomes identical. The staff training and everything else that goes with it is very, very similar, so that it's not a huge transition. Clinicians should not be afraid. It's not a matter of if they're going to move into the digital age, it's a matter of when. And the sooner they move into it, the sooner they can start reaping the benefits. As we know, government, and as all the discussions today with government intervention into healthcare, we are going to be required to have an electronic database for our patients in the very near future. And the sooner we can transition our practices, and which is one of the things I do on the DICOM Standards Committee, is trying to set standards in such a way that people can migrate very, very easily into this digital world with little fear and little trepidation. So again, I would encourage all clinicians to very seriously evaluate systems and figure out what's the best way they can move to where they need to.